What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or for the first time if you're new, I'm Sylvan, and today I'm going to be reacting to Apothecary Diaries, Season 2, Episode 15. I'm very interested in seeing what happens after the cliffhanger we were left on last episode, so feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and let's get into this. I wonder what exactly happened. Was it just that Xiaolin bumped into the cart and knocked the ice off of it and it broke because of that? Or was she more in some direct way responsible? Definitely she's acting like it was an accident, so I'm assuming it was. I really like these perspective shots. But this is easily still my favorite part of the opening. I love variants in art styles. Hmm. I'm very curious about that, ice cream or whatever. Okay, how does she get out of this? Okay, bumped into him. Yeah. Oh, Jinshi's here. Yeah. Well, yeah, of course he was. He was here last time. Okay. I'm still curious about that hairpin that she has. Yeah. Ah, it was for Lolan? Fuck. Yeah. Literally the only one you have no connections with. That's gonna be hard. God, despite this guy also being in trouble, he's rather cocky. Okay. God damn it, Jinshi. Why are you smiling like that? Yeah. Okay. He seems very unperturbed. Oh, focusing on the hairpin again. Yeah. Makes sense. Huh. Okay, yeah. Bearing fruit from last time. Okay. Yeah. I mean, just the whiplash of that would probably be enough. You're so smug, Jinshi. Jesus Christ. Yeah, he's really abusing his position here. He's also the best person for you to be out of line with. But she doesn't want Xiaolin to get in trouble. But you're friends, though. There it is. Just good old kindness. Huh. I'm very interested by Jinchi's attitude and reaction here. Uh-oh. Ah! Payback! She doesn't even realize! It's too late for that. Oh. Okay. Interesting. Oh my god. Not yet. Okay. Hmm. Oh. Interesting. Okay. I did notice that she was wearing a hairpin in a couple shots of the opening, so that's interesting how this is coming up. All right. Yeah, okay. I had a feeling. We're making ice cream. Oh, she doesn't even necessarily know the process? Okay. That guy is very desperate as well, makes sense. Hmm. I'm gonna get so hungry yet because of this. Yeah. It's interesting to see this because though I know like the basics of how ice cream is made, I don't necessarily know the full process. Okay. Yeah, sort of a makeshift uh like ice bowl thing. I don't know what to call it properly, but I know the general process, like I said. Yep. Brushing up and cutting up all of the fruit. God, it's been so long since I've had good like fruit ice cream. Ah, good to see Xiaolin's attitude has already come back. Yeah, that could have been real nice. Aren't you in enough trouble, Xiaolin? Yeah, no, it's good to see her back to her usual self. Oh, they have extra. God. It's been a while since I've been this envious of food in anime. Well, that got solved nice and easy, assumably, assuming Lowlin likes it. Yeah, she always could just not accept it. All the little chibi forms coming back is real nice. Chisui? You ditched work? Jesus. God. Nice. Maybe. That'd be nice. What's with that look? Just realizing that you like seeing your friends happy? That's my guess, at least. Mmm. Pregnancy moving along. Alright, that got resolved fairly quickly. Okay, we're already that far along. Time moves fast. How old is Lingli supposed to be at this point? Is that abnormal? Okay, something definitely feels like it's off. Okay. Alright. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. A breech delivery. I feel like I've heard of that, but don't know what it is. Okay, so that was the sign. Okay, that's sort of what I was thinking. Because, that's supposed to be the way that it goes. Yeah, because the head could get caught much more easily. My thoughts were sort of leaning in that direction, but I wasn't confident. Believe it or not, I don't know much about pregnancies. Hmm. Yeah. You're not a midwife. Good thing she caught this early, though, so that they can be prepared. Yeah. Okay. Interesting development. All right. Wow, we're really close then. I don't even know what that is. Worrying. Might need to be a C-section, all right. Mm-hmm. Surgery's much more risky at this time. Yeah. Are they actually gonna pull someone else in? They're gonna pull her dad in, maybe? Well, the person who raised her. Yeah. That's politically very tricky, though, given that he was knocked out of the rear palace for similar context. Yeah. Okay. I didn't realize he actually had experience with C-section specifically. Yeah. Hmm. You're not selling it well by saying that. This is an interesting debate. Well, one of the few people she admires. Yeah, good. At least Goku is keeping a level head here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So she doesn't even know the exact reason. Hmm. Taught her everything she knows. That's ought to be a pretty big thing. Yeah. The immediate trust. Mm-hmm. Hmm. This stray cat. Mm. Okay, yeah. All right. So she's very aware of the political complicated scenario of the previous reign. Yeah, dignity. Interesting. This is really cool. It's been a minute since we've seen Loman. This is a pretty big deal for a variety of reasons, actually. An interesting twist of fate. Yeah, not a permanent return. That would be a bit more complicated. He's also rather old, so it makes sense he wouldn't take up a full position again. They all swarm her, of course. What did you imagine? Oh. They expected him to not be normal. Oh. The absolute indirect slander. Oh my god. The absolute slander. Oh? The ominous song? Ah. Our little infiltrator. What are you up to? I guess we'll have to find out next time. Alright, so this episode was fairly interesting because it realistically is split between two different plot lines. Going into this episode, I assumed the fallout of whatever Xiaolin had done was going to be the majority of the episode. But as it turns out, it is merely like the first half, and the tension of it is very limited to just sort of the beginning, which in a manner of speaking is fairly lucky, because seeing as how this circumstance is laid out, it is sort of a worst case scenario. Xiaolin has caused a problem that will impact concubine Lolin, which is realistically the only head concubine that Maomao has no connections to. But luckily, though she's just sort of winging it, having only seen the process done, not having learned how to do it herself, Maomao is able to pivot the issue rather well, because the ice was supposed to be for a icy treat, essentially, for Lolin, which even in its broken state can be used to create some nice cooling treats, evidently in this case, ice cream. But once that conclusion has come to that is what they need to do, most of the tension really leaves the scenario, and it really more so becomes just them showing the process of creating ice cream in a fairly abbreviated form. And once it's finished, it just becomes pretty lighthearted, pretty goofy, with Maomao, Xiaolin, and Shisui just having fun, hanging out, and enjoying the leftovers. So then, of course, narratively, the question becomes, what was the point of this little storyline? Realistically, what I see the point of it as is two things. One is showing that Maomao has grown closer to Xiaolin and Shisui, her beginning to view them as actual close friends rather than just acquaintances. And we can see this in just the fact that Maomao is helping at all, as well as the way she reacts in seeing Xiaolin and Shisui having fun, enjoying the ice cream. But then the other thing this achieves is effectively distracting Jinshi from what he was doing at the end of last episode, which was inspecting the new eunuchs. Though Jinshi was not the right person necessarily to recognize Suirei, because I don't believe he ever actually met her, he definitely could have maybe figured out that something was up if he continued to inspect. But this commotion distracted him, which essentially enables Jinshi to have looked into the new eunuchs without discovering what is really going on. But then, though it isn't necessarily directly connected to the scenario, one other thing that is achieved during this part of the episode is the brief discussion between Maomao and Jinshi. For the majority of this conversation, Jinshi is rather smug and confident and using his position to be overly playful with Maomao, as he often is. But what is different about this moment is that Maomao is actually a bit desperate. She needs help and resources, and he can supply them, but he's being coy about it. Which what this leads to is, though technically speaking, Jinshi could order her to do just about anything, he has that power, this moment is a way for Jinshi to much more diplomatically have power over her and basically be able to set up what he will do when he will reveal his identity properly. And that takes the form of him noticing that she doesn't wear a hairpin. She just uses a cloth. He brings up that he gave her one a while back, as we know, and basically says, you should wear that instead of just using a cloth. And when you do, I will tell you what I've been meaning to tell you. Essentially speaking into reality, not only something for her to know, like be prepared for me to tell you something, but also sort of an ultimatum for himself, stating aloud so he can't go back on it that I have something to tell you, I will do it then. It's a way for him to continue kicking it down the curb, while also potentially steeling himself for actually going through with it later, which likely will be something that happens later down the line soon, seeing as in the opening we see her with the hairpin. Now, of course, something else might interrupt them again, or he might get cold feet, or whatever might happen, but at the very least we know the context in which he intends to tell her now. But beyond that, we then move into the second storyline of the episode, which is something we sort of are leading into the next episode with, seeing as not everything was fully resolved this episode. And what that second plotline is the upcoming birth of Gyokyo's next child. As due to just an offhanded statement from Gyokyo, Maomao is able to realize that something might be wrong, that due to the orientation of the baby inside her belly, things could go potentially very wrong, and that in all likelihood, this could be a breech birth and might require a C-section to give birth safely, but even that is risky. We spend a chunk of this episode discussing what this means, confirming if it's the case, the risks involved, the context of her original birth, until finally they recognize this may be necessary, a C-section may be necessary. Either way, we need to make sure we have someone capable who can help with the delivery and potential surgery if necessary. And it's through this, between all the various requirements of it needing to be someone who can be trusted and someone who is allowed into the rear palace, so either it has to be an official midwife or a eunuch, there really is only one person that any of them know that meets that condition, that being Maomao's adopted father, Loman. It is a very interesting and cool twist of fate that a man who is an incredibly talented and capable doctor who has taught Maomao everything she knows about medicine, yet was caught up in the political issues of the rear palace and therefore exiled as a criminal for not fully understood reasons relating to a previous pregnancy that he was delivering the baby for, that he is finally returning now to once again help deliver a baby. It is really interesting and cool that that is what brings him back. And though he is technically a criminal, someone who is exiled beforehand, Gyokyo trusts him because Maomao trusts him. And more specifically, he taught Maomao everything she knows, and Maomao has saved Gyokyo and her child's life with that knowledge. And she also recognizes that the quote-unquote crimes he has committed are likely not real crimes. Likely he was just caught up in the political machinations and grievances of the former empress, which from what we understand is largely correct. But then beyond that, other than a fun little interaction where the other ladies in waiting indirectly slander Maomao by being confused how Loman can be such a normal person with common sense and yet supposedly be the person who raised Maomao. How did Maomao turn out the way she did if someone so normal raised her? That is the question that they are vocalizing in this moment, and it is very funny. And almost more funny that Maomao does not realize what they're doing. And I don't think there's any maliciousness in their statements or pondering, but it's just very funny and very telling of what they think of Maomao. As much as they respect her knowledge and capability, they still think she's weird. But the main thing actually to call out about this interaction, I'd say, is that we notably see, though she's still sort of to the side and having to interject to be part of the group a little bit, the youngest of the three sisters that are the new ladies-in-waiting, I'm still learning their names, I forget if she's Haku'u or one of the others, but the youngest one is beginning to try to integrate herself more into the group that is the other ladies-in-waiting alongside Maomao. And within that is differentiating herself from her sisters. She isn't being part of that sort of weird, enigmatic match set that they just are all sort of non-responsive and such. She's beginning to sort of show herself as her own person a little bit, even if she's awkward in doing so, which is neat. But then finally, we end on the not exactly cliffhanger, but interesting note carrying into presumably next episode, or at the very least later into the season, who I'm continuing to assume is just Suirei, but in the context of their disguise, the one handsome eunuch, standing somewhere presumably in the rear palace, probably to the north side, given that that seems to be where this sort of small forest is, standing in front of a series of graves. In one of the shots we can see that there are 10 of these graves, but I find it interesting that Suirei is here looking over several graves. It makes me curious who they are and why she seems to care about them or be visiting them. Are these people that she knew and cared for? Are these people she is responsible for the death of? Either one is complicated and interesting, and it may not be either, but those are what come to mind. Either way, we have basically no context to this, so it's hard to say what exactly the intent here is, only that the way it's portrayed is rather ominous, mainly due to the music, which of course could be a bit of a red herring, seeing as one of the last times we ended an episode on a mysterious, unexplained moment with a character and this ominous music playing was with Shisui in the woods when she was looking at the glowing moths, before we realized, hey, we could use those for that whole plot line. And that was in no way an actually ominous moment, it was just portrayed as much at the end of that episode. So it's possible this doesn't actually have any ominous foreboding intent to it, but the way it's portrayed makes it feel that way, and given the character that it is connected to, probably does. But with that, I don't necessarily have too much more to say about this episode, so I will leave things there. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye!